thank you so much for coming in today. It's a beautiful Sunday, but you've come here inside to have a chat.
But I get to look at the beautiful blue sky as I look at you.
Yeah, thank you. My blue eyes, right?
Yes.
This is a great spot. I love doing it here on Sundays. I want to talk about your jazz career.
Yeah.
And first, I want to talk about your connection to Kelowna. So you were 6 years old, I think, when you came to Kelowna.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting story.
Well, it is an interesting story because I was born in Poland, and my whole family moved, except for my oldest sister, who's 18 years older. She stayed in Poland because she had to finish university. But I was 1 when we moved to Canada, to St. Catharines. And we were going on a family trip because my mother found an old school friend who was living in Chilliwack. So we decided to take a big family vacation to Chilliwack. Well, we were driving through the mountains, and there was like some sort of a freak ice storm, and we hit black ice, and we fell over a cliff, and we ended up in the hospital. My dad broke all his ribs. I smashed my face. My mom hurt her arm, and my sister was okay. She was fine, but all of us were in the hospital, and the local hospital was the Kelowna General.
Wow! So it was close by.
Yeah. Well, we were through the mountains, so the closest hospital was the Kelowna General because we were on our way to Chilliwack.
Yeah.
So Mom, when she got out first, because she only broke an arm, but she had 2 girls here, and my dad was in the hospital. She had to put us in school because it was school time. So we rented a little house on Tut Street. Across the street was Raymer Elementary, and we went to school here until my dad was well enough to get out of the hospital. And it was a couple of months. He was quite bad. But while we were here, my mom's looking around going, Chilliwack, Schmilliwack. This place is awesome. Because we were looking to move to BC. That was her in the back of her head because her friend was... she had a friend in Canada. Woo! So we got together some money, and my mom got her friends and my sister, who was just finished school, to come to Canada. They helped with the move and the selling of our house in Ontario, and we stayed here. And then we bought land, and my dad and my brother, they're both carpenters, and they started building the house. So we... got here like that, complete, like by accident, literally.
Yeah. What a great story.
I know.
And your poor dad, when I first came, I came as a teenager briefly to British Columbia, but I drove here for the first time in 2008, and I was completely freaked out by those mountains.
Those roads.
Because you recall in Ontario, where I grew up also.
Oh, you too, okay.
If you have a 6-foot ditch, there's a guardrail. Like, all our roads have guardrails.
And this went down.
And straight down. Wow.
Yeah. Everyone said, how did we make it? And we tumbled apparently 3 times. My mom was compos mentis. When the accident happened, I was sleeping. Yeah. And we were in a big van. And in those days, you didn't really pay that much attention to safety. So Dad just took an old chair from the living room and plunked it right in the middle so that I could sit. Right. And we had a bed in the back where my sister was. So it was just all fun. It was like, woo, we're taking the van across Canada.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Scary. But everybody made it.
Everyone made it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're an amazing musician. Tell us about when you first got introduced to music.
Well, it really was. I've always been the all-singing, all-dancing girl, and my family very much tried to suppress it from me. I'm from a very religious family.
So even as a little girl, you would try to sing and dance, they would say, cut it out?
Oh, pretty much. Like during the dinner parties, it was fun because look at your little daughter, how interesting. Because I would make little plays up, and I would go into this big closet. My mom was always sending care packages to Poland, with like beautiful clothes wrapped in coffee or sugar and things that were expensive there, but not affordable here in Canada. And there was this big dress-up closet, which I thought it was a dress-up closet. It was actually, for things to send and mend or whatever. Yeah. And I would just make up little plays and always sing and always just have fun. I wrote songs, and even when I was running or doing sports, there was always music in my head. So I never knew that it was music. I found out earlier that my mother was an opera singer, but she gave that up very young to have babies because her mother said, it's time to get married. You're 18 and you're too old now. You'll never be able to do it. So she got married at 18, and she married a preacher. Yeah. So then all of a sudden she's the preacher's wife, and there was no room for doing anything except for singing in the church, which was, again, that's where she thought, well, that's where my blessing is, so that's what I'm going to do. And I always had music. There was always guitars, mandolins, pianos around. And I loved the instruments, but when it came to train me, I've had some really bad experiences, and I just blocked learning the piano or learning chords till later. I had some traumatic times there.
So some bad teachers?
Very bad, like slapping and telling me that I was the only music possible was classical when I wanted to play. I always remember Elton John's Rocket Man, and I just loved that song, and I wanted to learn how to play it.
It's very beautiful.
Yes. And my mom used to always say, because I remembered lyrics off of records, or we didn't really have records, but I would take my dad's old cassettes and I would just record the radio and then turn it off and then just listen to it in my little cassette, just like whatever was there, and I would learn the words. Or my mom would always say, if you could learn your studies like you memorize all the commercials and songs, you would maybe be good in school, Anya. So who would have not thunk it that maybe that's music was supposed to be my career?
Yeah. So these abusive teachers, was this, which town?
This is here in Kelowna.
In Kelowna.
Yeah, because Mom wanted to put us through school right away. She loves music. She's surrounded by music. She, honestly, even the cutest thing now, she's 88. And the other day I was at her place visiting, and she was humming around and doing that. She went, I'm just going to sing one song for Jesus. And then she goes and sits down on the piano and she sings her song, and with her glasses and her light, and she finishes, and then she's like, okay. And then she just gets on with her day. And I thought, that is somebody who truly, truly just has a song in her heart all the time.
Yeah.
So hopefully I want to be like that when I grow up.
Right. So she wanted you to be serious about your academics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't really see a career.
She wanted me to be a lawyer's secretary, and to marry a lawyer, or something
responsible.
Something very,
And when did it change? When did she say, you know what, you're a musician? You're a musician, and I'm good with that. I
graduated high school, and starting in grade 10, I started working towards getting a immigration lottery to move to England. I met an English girl, came as an exchange and I loved all the music in England. And I just said, this is where I need to be. All those songs come from somewhere. I want to be inspired by that place, and I want to find out what else is there except for my small community, which is, Kelowna was very small. I lived on Gordon, and Gordon turned into Raymer, and it was a dirty road. I mean, me and my nephews, because my brother had 2 kids at the time, me and my nephews were running, and we were chasing tumbleweeds down Gordon Drive, which was Gordon Road at the time. So, I mean, it's completely different. I came home from England about 10 years later, and our road was a 4-lane highway, and it was being shoved across up to Harvey, and I was just like, what? So,
our little street. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so, I mean, was there a point, though, where your mom said, okay, I'm accepting this now, that you're a musician?
Never. Nope, she never really did, except when I started recording or sending her newspaper clippings, or if something really neat happened and I would, make sure that she got a copy, then she was a little bit proud of me. But she was always knew that the music was kind of surrounded by things that were not from the church. And they're, it's true. It's not. But, I'm a good girl, Mama. Sometimes.
Very nice. Very nice. And you performed in a lot of amazing productions.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of your favorites.
Well, theater really only happened again for me after I came back here. I did a couple of pieces of theater when I lived in England.
So you did go to England.
Oh, I moved there. I lived there for 20 years.
I know you wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so you went for 20 years.
Yeah, I lived in England.
What made you come back?
My dad, he got Alzheimer's, and I was living in China at the time. I know I've had a very extremely traveled life, and I was getting sick of China. It was time. I had split up with a boy that I liked, but we were living together. I left the flat because he was all set up with the recordings and all his guitars, and we were both musicians. He was French, I was Canadian, and I knew that I was going to eventually leave China. And I phoned Mom, and she's like, Dad's not doing so well. And I went, oh, perfect. I flew back to England, and I was subletting my flat, so everything went into storage. I came back to Canada, and I fell in love with an Englishman. And so if it wasn't...
In Kelowna.
In Kelowna.
Right.
And he loved Kelowna, and he kind of made me fall in love, let's say, with all the things that I took for granted. The mountains, the scenery, the fresh air, the health. I mean, in China and England, you don't have that. I would always say when we were driving through places in Europe, oh, that kind of looks like my hometown in Kelowna. And people would always go, oh, it's too beautiful, as if you would leave that. And I would literally send pictures to people and go, you were right. You live in a stunning place. So I did. I fell in love with Kelowna again, and I've been here now 10 years.
Right. So you decided when you were 18, I think you said, that you wanted to go to England. Did you leave right away?
I did.
And tell us about your music career from the time you touched down.
Oh, well, the first, I needed to convince people that I was a singer, even though I didn't believe it myself. So I very much lucked out. I got a job at a private members jazz club, and in London, because you had so many people, you had these private members clubs, and there were some clubs that were for men only. There were some private members club, but there were drinking establishments. This was a drinking jazz club, and I had never really heard jazz. I have until they were playing music, and I remember the first time I heard Julie London, Fever, and I just went, what is this music?
Yeah.
And my friend beside me said, it's jazz. And I said, I love this. Because I was still at that point wanting to be a pop star. And everything that I was trying to work towards was being a pop star.
Was Elton John your favorite at the time, or one of them?
Well, that was when I was taking piano lessons when I was younger.
Right.
I was obsessed with Duran Duran. I was obsessed with the Eurythmics. I was obsessed with, oh my God, from, who was that? Psychedelic Furs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, every British band, Psychedelic Furs and Eurythmics and Duran Duran made me feel like London was my home. Because
so much great British pop in the early 80s.
Yeah, and the lyrics were interesting, the musicality were interesting. Even the Pet Shop Boys, where it was just like simple synthesizer piano licks, were interesting because how can you turn that into a pop song? And it was so fun, and just the stories, and I loved it.
So did you immediately convert to jazz? Were you like, this is it?
No, it took a little while because I was trying to find out how I can do it. I learned a couple of songs, but I was really not into it. I started working for record companies. I worked for Island and EMI, but just in those days where there was no computers, we just started having a computer, and we'd have to get newspapers flown in from all around the world, and we'd go through them every day to see what bands or magazines. And I was doing scrapbooks basically for record companies for whatever acts that I was assigned to for that week or for that month or whatever. And I probably didn't get paid very much. I remember, I mean, I don't even remember. I lived and I bought champagne and I went out every night, so I must have made enough money, but I got free records as well, and I thought, I'm going to work for record companies forever.
What were you doing exactly for the record company? You're collecting
I was doing press and PR, basically.
Press and PR.
Yeah, so it was basically press and PR. Then I started working as a secretary to an agent who was called. It was called Wasted Talent, and it was a huge touring agent. And that's when, U2, Eurythmics, everybody who toured pretty much went through Wasted Talent. And so I was surrounded by people all the time, and I would just tell everyone I'm a singer too. And I remember Simple Minds, the drummer of Simple Minds, took me into a studio and had a couple of songs for me, and we demoed those, and that's how I kind of got started, because when we demoed those, we had a photographer, and I had everything at my disposal. I wasted a lot of opportunities, let's say, because, the fun side of the music business was more fun than actually the work.
Right.
And I always knew I had money coming in through my job. So these opportunities, I thought that they were it was that easy to get in, because it was so easy for me. Right. So let's just stop there, because I'm not going to tell you. I wasn't my mother would not approve.
Right. Awesome. So then what happened?
So then I started, actually, let's go to when I first started doing jazz, because this is really the rest of my life. I was on tour, a small tour with Cher, and we had some time off in the south of France, and my girlfriend, who was there with her boyfriend, invited me to stay for the weekend. I already had my flights. I said goodbye to the tour, and I was going to spend the weekend in Cannes, or just beside Cannes, somewhere in the south of France. Anyways, no, it was a little like Joie de Pain.
Small town.
There's a jazz festival there now, but so we were there, and my girlfriend introduced me to her boyfriend, who introduced me to his partner, who then we fell in love, and we ended up living together. Because of that...
This is the French gentleman you ended up in China with?
No, this was the Englishman. China was only 10-15 years ago. This was back in... I think I was 24 at the time.
Okay.
I know I was 24 because he was 27. And so we ended up living together, and because of that... I wasn't working a lot, because I was he was a lord, and he didn't really want me to work at night. So after Cher, I thought, what am I going to do? So I just went to the Guildhall of Music to hire some musicians who wanted to be paid to teach me. So I had a piano player and a drummer and a double bass player, and they would come after school to my home, and I would pay them 50 quid each for an hour, and they would teach me what jazz is, and they would learn some songs and da-da-da-da. And then I got some gigs together, and because I was in a situation from being with Wasted Talent, from having a really good filofax at the time, a filofax full of numbers. I'm like, I've got a jazz band. Why don't I play? And you guys were going to come, and then so influential people would come.
Right. So at that point, you were really in love with jazz.
I was. Yeah. I wanted to sing jazz, and I realized that I didn't have to wear like thigh-high spiked boots and little mini dresses. I liked food and I liked wine, and I'm not tall and skinny. So I knew that one can age well with jazz. So, and I thought that this is going to be a long-term thing rather than short-term. What I should have done is like sold out, got loads and loads of money, and then sang the jazz. But I already had money. I was doing good, doing well. I was happily in love and blah blah blah. So that's when I started learning jazz, started gigging, and then actually taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. That's when and people were taking it seriously around me, and I didn't get a record deal. I got like three. It was a 3 single record deal to see how I was going to do. And as I was recording and doing things, we broke up, and then I had to kind of start.
You and
me and John, yeah, okay, my guy,
right?
And I had to start really from scratch because for 4 years I hadn't paid my own rent or found a flat, had sheets. I had to start from scratch again. So it was all good. I never felt like I was being, life treated me terribly because I was so lucky so far. Mm-hmm. I had the best.
Yeah.
The best things are people couldn't even dream about. Mm-hmm. Some of the stories that I lived. So
was this in London?
In London, yeah.
Did you spend all of your time in England in London?
Most of the time. After John and I broke up, and I was struggling to get a flat and I went to Norfolk because John's family and his roots are in Norfolk in England. And I went to visit some of his friends that were my friends because we had spent 4 or 5 years together already. Mm-hmm. And on the radio, I heard that they were looking for a radio broadcaster in King's Lynn in Norfolk, and I wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. And I went and applied for the job, and I got in there in an apprentice, but like the money was just terrible, right. but it was fine because I would drive to London and do gigs at the time because I was already getting back into to gigging. But I lived in Norfolk for a year in a beautiful old converted barn by the sea, Wells next the sea, and I would drive my little Fiat Punto from Wells next the sea to King's Lynn every morning to be on.
How far would you drive?
Oh, it's about a 35-minute drive if you drive fast enough. But there's little roads, that early in the morning. It was a 6 till 9 radio spot. So I would leave at 4:30, 5 just to get prepped. Sometimes I'd be late, but I always had a producer that put on some music before I went, "Hi, I made it."
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you've done some theater work too. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
I always wanted to do theater, but like I said, when I was in England, I was in a musical called Bad Boy Johnny and the Prophets of Doom, and it was with Craig Ferguson and Mark Shaw from Then Jericho. It was pretty star-studded, and I got the part as the mother, and it was kind of like a risky musical because it was about a pope who had relations with an altar girl or a lady in the church, and they had this boy, and this boy then wanted to be a rock star who ended up being the Pope. It's a crazy musical. It was made by an Australian, right. And this Australian, I just can't remember his name at the time. He was the original in Australia, Frankenfurter for Rocky Horror Picture Show. Okay. So he was uber famous, and he wrote this musical that crazy because his brain was from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So nothing was impossible. So I started doing theater there, but people. At the time, you had to choose a lane. You can't multitask, and it was one of those. Choose a lane and stick with it. So I chose jazz as my lane, and I then didn't want to do anything else. So I came back to Kelowna in 2008, but then really 2009 I went back to China for 6 months to make some money because I wanted to start a jazz club here, and I was known in China and not here.
Right.
So anyway, I came back here. I did the jazz club, and I wanted to audition, but I already had a seasoned jazz voice. So when I auditioned for things, I really didn't get them because, I mean, Roz Franz, who was the musical director, she still is. I have this running thing with her because now she's just a dear friend of mine. But when I first met her and she was playing the piano for my audition, she's like, can you sing in a different way? Because I'd be like, summertime, and you know, the jazz. Plus I smoked and I had that raw thing. And she
didn't like it?
She's like, can you sing in a different way? Because, you know, a theater voice is you have to lift your palate, sing slightly up your nose, up behind your nose where the resonators are. You use your head voice.
Is that because you have to project into the audience?
No, it's because it's that kind of like, rather than you know, it's that difference that you know, I liked my living in here, whereas she wanted, I mean, you listen to the theater voices and some theater voices do not go sing well with jazz, and a lot of classical artists who study classical can't do jazz. It's different. Thank you for saying.
So what happened? Was it a big fight, or were
she's
you
like,
what are you talking about?
I said, well, how would you want me to sing it? She went, well, not that way. And I thought, what, bitch? But I'm a singer. I'm an international jazz singer. Until she gave me just a couple of tips, and I went back, thought about them, started studying about what's the difference between, you know, using, you know, your upper palate, your nose head resonators rather than your chest resonators. And I went back and I auditioned for Mary Poppins, and I got the lead as Mrs. Banks. And again, Roz really helped me find how to get that. They never said, don't sing the way you do because you're Anna Jacyszyn. You have to have your signature, but just lift up. And so then I had to talk like this for a year so that I could just, you know, understand why this is more important than just sitting in that, you know, it's, you completely changes your tone.
Yeah. What's it like doing an audition? Is it nerve-wracking? Were you totally
terrible?
Confident?
I hate auditions. Yeah. I'm really good on the spot. Throw her on a stage and see what she does. Yeah. But for an audition where people are judging you or pitting you against each other, I don't know. It's really awful. I hate it. I get nervous. I get clammy. I screw up.
Did you face a lot of rejection?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. So you don't get picked for every single part.
I'm so used to being rejected that when I get it, I'm like, really? And when somebody goes, oh, as if you didn't know you were going to get it, I'm just like, never. I really did not think.
How many people typically audition for a part?
Maybe 16 to 20.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so much talent, first of all, in the Okanagan. I thought London was hard, but it was, I don't know, for some reason it was easy in London because I had balls of steel. I didn't think that I would ever get anything anyway, so whatever I wanted, I just got it. I don't know why I thought London was easier than Kelowna. Because I think maybe it's more condensed, like a little pill, maybe. You know. I don't know what it is.
Huh. So today you're doing a bunch of stuff.
I am.
Tell us about the Tiny Tim Breakfast.
Oh, well, that's one of my little charities that I started taking on and doing the music program for it. Tiny Tim Breakfast happens at the Capri, and it happens like the first Thursday of December. I think it's the first Thursday of December. And what happened was, I have always sang on weekends at the Capri, and they asked me one time, I got friends, I'm quite chatty, so I get to know whoever's walking by, whoever's doing, you know, whoever's like the, what are they called? The food and beverage managers.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'd met them, and I met some managers, and we're chatting away on breaks or whatever. And they said, well, you know what, we're doing a Tiny Tim thing. Why don't you come and sing? So I said, sure. It's tomorrow at 6:00 in the morning. I'm like, oh, sure. So I got there, And everything was a little bit disorganized. And I was wondering who's in charge, and there was nobody in charge. Everyone was too busy, so nobody was really in charge of the stage. They just invited a bunch of people to come and sing, so whoever came first came first. So that I started organizing that, getting people on, getting people off, talking to the sound guy, seeing what each act needs, and making sure that they had enough mics, or if they had a DI for a bass or for this, and it just kind of worked. And I ended up staying till the very end. Then Cara, who is one of the ladies who organizes it, said, will you do this again next year? And I've been doing it for 7 years now.
Right.
And so I organize the bands, and I make sure that the entertainment on the stage is organized, and there's always something really interesting, from dancers to duos to choirs to an opera singer to a quartet from the symphony. Right. So we always try to make the lineup good, and it's all for charity, the Salvation Army, and you know how well they do in the environment. And I always had a little Salvation Army on the Portobello Road where I lived, and it was just this cute little venue, and they always were doing something. So I never did anything for them, so it makes me feel like I'm doing something now.
Luke Mankus is a realtor. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent, and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Mankus a call or a text message at any time, 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273. 778-215-4273 to chat with Luke about real estate.
Where does the name come from? Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim. Oh, actually, it's probably from the tale. Little Tiny Tim who was in what's his name?
I forget this tale.
I know.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. What's his face? Yeah, that little story by, I want to say, not Darwin, but starts with
Dickens?
Charles Dickens, thank you. See, you're smarter than me. But I came back to Kelowna to start Jazz Cafe thinking that I was going to find start a jazz club. Because there was no place for these great musicians to really be free. Everybody was doing music in restaurants or as duos, paying them just a little bit of money just to entertain their restaurant guests. But where can you hear them in a concert format? So I put together the best musicians that I was playing with, and we started Jazz Cafe. And then once in a while, if amazing musicians were coming through, then I would work it around me, them playing, and then my band would have the night off, or they would pad out the bands that were coming through.
Right.
But yeah, it was a really good platform for these great guys. I mean, the original lineup was Neville Bowman on the piano, Bernie Addington on the double bass, Craig Thompson was on the saxophone, Scott Gamble on the drums, myself on vocals. Then we'd have Lonnie Moger come in sometimes as the guest guitarist, and then we would just do that every month and just have a brand new repertoire So we did that for like 4 years, every month for 4 years, and people bought a membership, and they came religiously. It used to be that it was at the Black Box, and it was like 18th of every month. So whether it was a Tuesday or a Saturday or a Monday, that way everyone could have a chance to remember, oh, it's the 18th of the month. Oh, it's Jazz Cafe this month.
Yeah.
So then it changed a little bit because, well, the Black Box started getting famous because we kind of turned that dead space into a venue, and they started booking it without putting us first, which was a little bit of a bone of contention, but business is business.
Yeah.
Luckily now we have the Forum, the Kelowna Forum on Ethel, and that was built. I would looked at it to do exactly what's there as a venue, but I didn't have $1 million, and somebody else did. Yay! And so now we play from there, and I booked bands for that. In fact, this Monday, April the 8th, not this Monday, not tomorrow, but in
your week,
I have Kirk MacDonald and the legendary Harold Mayburn coming. And now Kirk MacDonald is a legend in Canada. He is an amazing saxophonist. He's an educator. He's from Toronto. He's a Juno Award winner. But he's now working and going on tour with an American, Harold Mayburn. Now, Harold, when he was 17, he moved from Chicago to New York and went straight to the Blue Note. And Cannonball Adderley said, we'll play then. And that night he joined Cannonball's band, and he was playing with Cannonball. He played with so many other legends, like he went on tour with Miles Davis. He played with Sarah Vaughan. He's played with, oh God, I mean, literally the list goes on. And he is 88 years old, and his piano chops are as hot as ever. So he is going to be at the Forum. And because I'm the vice president of the Jazz and Blues Society, I took that gig and I put it through the Jazz and Blues Society so that we're rebooting. So let's give that to the Jazz and Blues. So if you want to buy a ticket,
yes,
you have to go to the Okanagan Jazz and Blues Society, and there you'll see all the information and the ticket links. So I'm excited about that.
So we'll put links in the show notes for all this great stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Are you going to perform at this show? Are you
at this show?
Organizer?
I'm not sure if I'm going to perform at this show, but on Thursday at the venue, I am going to be playing with Craig Thompson and Greg Jasinski for the Boss Tenors. Neville Bowman's going to be on the stage, Bernie Addington, Mike Treadway, and I will be the guest vocalist. So tickets for that are $30, and you can get them at brownpapertickets.com. $30 and $20 for students. So that's April the 11th. Because, that whole week, it's Jazz Festival week.
Yeah.
So it just works out perfectly. This Saturday coming, there's the Polish jazz musicians playing at the Forum.
Wow.
And when the Forum just had opened up, they had this band in, and I had helped press and PR that. So it just works out perfectly that Saturday there's jazz, Monday there's another legendary jazz, then Wednesday we're going to start the jazz festival at the school, at the Kelowna Community Theatre, at the Rotary Centre for the Arts, and there's going to be adjudicating. And then right inside that pocket, I'm adjudicating at the Kiwanis Festival. So I'm the Popular Voice adjudicator at the Rotary Centre for the Arts.
So what's Popular Voice?
Popular Voice is pop.
Pop music?
Yes, pop music. So they'll
come
be
full
singing.
circle, you'll get to judge.
That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I get to... I won't be judgy. I will just give my comments of just spending 30-some years of being on the road, not only just listening to people, hearing how they sing, but hopefully I'll be able to give them some professional tips and help on just how you hold yourself. When I give lessons, the first lessons I always say it's really boring but important. It's just breathing, learning how to breathe and hold a note, learning how to sustain a note in tune, if I say sing this tune and I play an F, that the person is actually hearing what I'm playing, and they connect the F to the F, you know, and sing it in tune. Learn how to understand the correlation between melody and why are you singing it.
Right.
I always ask my students, why are you singing that song? Why do you want to? And they're like, I don't know, because I like it, it's popular. And why would you want to sing something that has this in it? Is that who you are? Do you define yourself through that? Because for a singer, it's personal. It's a storyteller. Yes. You're telling a piece of your soul. You're telling a piece of your heart. Even if it's not your words, you have to bring it in, digest it, and then feed it to the people so that it's understandable and relatable. You know, you want people to cry, you want people to laugh, you want people to emote some sort of a feeling when you're singing, or else what's the point? You're just background music,
right? You
know.
So you won't be like harsh and over the top, ridiculous like we see some of these people on TV.
No, no. Yeah, I know.
You're trying to be educational and you know, supportive.
Exactly.
Of what they're trying to do.
You have to. I mean, some people will find out themselves that a career in music is not their thing, because of, you know, eventually the work doesn't come, and so change it up or find a new venue. But when you're working with somebody, you want to make sure that you highlight what's good about it, but then you constructively criticize what they can change. Give them a reason why you're criticizing. Yes. Tell them how to make it better, instead of just saying, well, you're crap because you sang out of tune. Well, then what does crap and sang out of tune mean? Then you explain to them what that means.
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't say you're crap and you sing out of tune, by the way.
Right. So do you still find yourself compelled to spontaneously sing? So if you're driving with your car and you sing?
I do, and I'm one of those people that are annoying when I'm walking down the street and I'll be like, the sun is shining, it's beautiful today. And I just throw myself into like I'm in Oklahoma or something.
Right. Well, I'm sure it turns some heads.
I don't know. I just smile and I know. At my age now, I feel that I'm allowed to be silly, and if somebody looks at me funny, whereas before I would be mortified if I was singing loudly and somebody went, what are you doing? Now it's like, hello, how are you? Come on, do you want to sing along with me? You know? And people would walk away fast. But
what sort of music do you listen to, like,
at home?
Electronically,
well, mostly jazz, but I was a house music club girl. Even when I loved jazz, I would go to like these basements where it was just dancing and sweating 2 hours, and then I would take the bus back home, you know, just to sweat and just to dance and move. I'm not a good dancer, and the choreographers at Kelowna Actors Studio will definitely raise their hands up and go, she's not a good dancer, but I feel like I can bust a move.
Do you still listen to house music?
I do.
Nice.
Especially Britpop and things like that, and I'll always find you know, Faithless is one of my favorite bands, and I'll still you know, ask Alexa to play something, but I don't have the records anymore. I've got them on. I have them. I have a record player and loads of records, but most of them are jazz.
Yeah. What is your favorite Duran Duran song?
Save a Prayer for the Morning After.
Oh, that's a great one.
I know.
This has been really cool because a lot of the music that you've loved, I've loved too. Yay. I never got that deeply into jazz, but I do love it. But all the pop bands from the 80s that you mentioned, I love them all. And I went through a house music phase. I also worked in radio in the Cayman Islands, and we played house music, and it was really cool. They didn't really have copyright laws, so we like download stuff. And what we tried to do is find house remixes of pop songs.
Yes.
And that was like our shtick.
That was awesome. My friend, we had a band called Cain and Abel, and he would do that, and I was like his singer. So he would take like from 100 songs and turn it all these different references, and then we would put that as the backbeat, and then we'd have our own lyrics and our own song. And there was so many great music. We spent a lot of time when I don't spend a lot of time outside because I'm so used to being inside a studio. Like when you said to me when I first came here, did you, sorry that we're inside. I'm so used to being inside and looking out, or being in the basement of a studio with no windows and just completely like sound closed in. And that's kind of where I feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I started singing with a country band.
Right.
They're called the Songs of the Southern Bells. And we basically take the classic bells, from Dolly Parton, Lynn Anderson, everybody. Sorry, my head is full right now. And we put on a soft cedar show. There's 2 singers, myself and Kinga Hemming, who is a beautiful jazz singer. And she's from Toronto and she lives in Kelowna now. And because we're both Polish, and she's 10 years younger, so she's like my sweet sister. So we always call each other sisters from another mister. And 2 guitarists. Usually it's Lonnie Moger. Sean Bray is the founder of the band, and then we have a rhythm section. So we put on these soft cedar shows, but just to keep our chops hot, we have these quartet shows. And can I just do a little shameless plug? Because the Southern Bells on April the 20th, we're going to be in concert at MTL on Kirshner Road, and the lineup will be Sean Bray, Lonnie Moger, Kinga Hemming, myself, and we're basically going to do vintage songs from the Grand Ole Opry.
Nice.
Let's put it that way. Could
you sing us a verse right now?
I sure can. What's my favorite right now? Okay. Jolene, 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 I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 please don't take him even though you can. Your beauty is beyond compare, with flaming locks of auburn hair, ivory skin and eyes of emerald green. Your smile is like a breath of spring, your voice is soft like summer's rain, and I cannot compete with you, Jolene. Jolene, 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 I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Something like that.
That's so nice. Was that Dolly Parton?
That's Dolly.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So nice.
Thank
you.
I
really appreciate it.
Oh.
And it's a great treat for me. Sundays are usually pretty quiet around here, so that's really nice.
I love it.
Who would you like to nominate to come on the show? So someone you would find interesting to hear their story. Even somebody you've heard the story before.
Yes.
But anyone with a connection to Kelowna that you would love to hear.
That I would love to hear. You know what? I mean, so many people have just come into my... Have you ever interviewed Rosemary Thompson yet?
No.
Rosemary Thompson is the maestro of the Okanagan Symphony Orchestra.
Okay.
And she is such an interesting person. She happens to be one of my best friends, and I feel so dumb when I'm around her. And I think that's why I love her so much, is because she's so interesting, and the way she speaks of music, it's almost like she is playing with every single word she speaks. I mean, I just love her so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Yeah. Did we do okay?
Yes.